Why should your church use graphics and video to help you visually communicate the gospel? We'll talk about it today. Hey, ministry leader, welcome. Glad you're here. This is the podcast where we talk about how important your visual media is in communicating the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, you may be a leader at your church or ministry that either has no creative team to produce graphics and video, or you might have a team and they are slammed, or you might be the slam team. This is the podcast for you. We're talking with ministry leaders in the trenches just like you who have some bumps and bruises along the way. In this episode, we're asking the question flat out, why should you use visual media? All right, so what is visual media? We're defining it as graphics and video that you put on screens of any size. So why do your visuals matter? Why does good design and good video make a difference? How do we know what good design and good video is? What are some industry standards? Why should I spend money and resources at my church on graphic design and video? Why should I spend it on graphics and video for my worship experience, or for my website, or for my social media, for my kids, for my student ministry? That's what we're after today. We'll dive in right after this. Are you looking for reliable printing for your visuals? Well, check out our friends at Outreach.com. As a preferred printing partner for over 20,000 churches worldwide, they have everything you need. From postcards to banners to mailers, Outreach is here to help you reach more with custom printing. Your visuals matter because your message matters. Make your message stand out with Outreach.com. Hey friends, this week I'm talking with Derek Smith. Derek is the creative director at Simple Church in Reynoldsburg, Ohio. Derek is a ministry leader that is in the trenches just like you. It's important to Simple Church to use visuals to communicate the gospel. I'm talking with Derek today about how they are doing that. Let's dive in. Hey Derek, welcome, man. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here, man.
Man, so you are from Simple Church. Tell me about Simple Church. Give me kind of some ministry background on yourself.
So Simple Church has been here for about 10 years. I helped to plant it 10 years ago with our lead pastor, Aaron DeLong. And I was kind of bouncing between different projects and different jobs. And I was actually getting out of working for the Antiques Roadshow. And I felt God tell me that I was done there. And I would basically just pray that whatever he needed from me, he turned me on to something new. And all I got was that I was going to be a creative director. And at the time, I didn't even know what that meant. But the church that I was attending was planting a church. And this guy called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, I don't know you. You don't know me. But for some reason, God put you on my heart that you're going to be my creative director." I was like, "Hey, you don't say." And it was literally like the next day. I mean, it was definitely a God thing. So yeah, so Simple Church has been here for 10 years. We've had a couple different buildings through COVID. We just moved into a old grocery store, into an old Aldi, and we've been here and just kicking in a community that's it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. So what does your week in, week out look like? What does creative director look like for you?
So I am actually in a creative pastor role now, so I get to do things a little bit differently. I do get to shepherd people now, which is really incredible. But essentially, I get to lead the charge in all things visual. So all of our production, even our worship, all of our photography, video, website, app, basically whatever the church looks like, I get to lead the people that lead those areas. So I have my hands in a lot of different things ultimately, but I've got good people around me. So it's a lot of peopling and just making sure that we're putting out the best product that we can for someone to come and find Jesus.
So that's exactly what I want to get into today is sure. Why do your visuals matter, and why should the church use visual media, graphics and video to communicate the gospel? So kind of give me a high-end theory point of view. Why should we even use visual media?
Uh, my high-end theory is that I think we should use visual media because I believe that Jesus would. I believe that the stories and parables that Jesus told were that time's version of visual media. He told stories that put those ideas in people's heads so they could see what that looked like. They could visually see the pictures and the stories that he talked about. And I think given the technology that we have today, he'd be doing the same thing.
So why does good design? So any church can just put up any type of graphics or video.
Sure.
But why is high quality? And I want to kind of dive into what maybe us try to define what high quality is.
Sure.
But let's just say there's a standard for right now. What is good design? Why does good design matter?
I think good design, obviously, it can be very subjective, but I think ultimately good design is that stops anyone from moving away from it. I mean, we've all heard the different things of stopping the scroll on social media or grabbing your attention if it's on the screen. Good design is anything that's going to make someone stop and take a second look and pay attention to what the message is that you're trying to tell. That is, I think, the nutshell of what good design is.
So let's define it. How
Sure.
can we know? Which is super subjective, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we know? And we'll get into video in a second, but how do we know if a design is a high quality design versus a low quality design?
Aside from the obvious, which is the quality of it itself, that it's not pixelated, it's not blurry, it's clear. It tells a message, man. It's really hard to describe. I think what good design is for your church, for your organization, may be very different than what's good design for mine or someone else's. I'm in a weird generation where I see a lot of the new trending graphics and I'm very confused by it. But there's also that, hey, it's got good color theory, it's got good contrast, it's got all the kind of staples that you do want in good design composition. But it may be strange, but it really communicates well for that group. So
is there a trend that's just not making sense to you right now?
Man, so many. I mean, I don't necessarily always get all like the big bubbly letters. We're going back to like 70s stuff and a lot of things. And I've always been trying to, I'm 36. I'm trying to do everything that my parents didn't do, or trying not to do anything that my parents did. So I'm kind of in this weird bubble of trying to get away from the vintage, and now the vintage is rushing back. So I always fight that, but I also know that it's for a lot of organizations, man, that they eat it up. So.
Man, I wonder if that has to do with just retro's back, or just kind of like this. Maybe there's, maybe just our generation had the best ideas, so everybody's recycling them. Maybe that's it.
It's very true.
I mean, from movies to TV shows to everything's being redone, remade, rehashed. So maybe that's some of it. I don't know. But there, would you say that there is? Let's camp in the design world for a second.
Sure.
Is there a standard? For instance, like, is there a standard of like these fonts you just don't use? There's just a standard. Well, what about, if it's ancient font? No, there's no reason why you're using papyrus.
Yeah, there's no reason for papyrus. There's no reason for lobster anymore. There's no reason for Comic Sans. Yeah, I mean, it's got to be clean. It's got to be crisp. It's got to be now. And I think there are even some vintage fonts that still scream now. And I think we got to stay away from papyrus for sure.
But what about what if there's an argument for a church that is, well, this meets our church. This communicates to our church, and we're trying to reach kindergartners, so this Comic Sans works. How would you politely argue against that?
Yeah, I think there's a time and place for everything, man. I do believe that environment matters, even with whatever you're creating. For a specific environment, you can roll into some of those things. I still think papyrus is there's never a need for it ever, never again.
How did James Cameron get away with it?
I have no idea. I have no idea. My lead pastor tries to slip it into as many things on purpose when I'm not paying attention. It's an ongoing joke, and it will be the death of me for sure. But no, I do think environment is important. If you're working with kids, you can use a lot more fun, a lot more friendly fonts that the kids will respond to, and that's totally fine. I think the biggest rule of thumb is just be your own organization. Be yourself. Don't try and copy what you see big churches doing, or even
Yeah.
Smaller churches because you want to appear smaller or more homey or whatever it is. Like, just be yourself. As long as you create what communicates to your people, that's the shining star there.
So why should I spend money on and resources at my church on graphic design? Why should I staff it? Why should I outsource it? Why should it be a thing that I spend resources on?
Yeah, just because the most important thing that we have as an organization, as a church, is the gospel. And we have to tell that story. And we can't always be in front of somebody. We can't always be doing videos, which also cost money. We can't always be doing just tech. We have to be in front of people all the time so that we can share that gospel. And that requires graphics. It requires infographics. It requires, getting information out there to people. And that is the best way to do it. So spending money on it, that is, you may not have the resource. I mean, I know very few churches who have the resources to pay for a full-time graphic designer. So subbing out to companies in order to do it, man, it's powerful. We don't have the time. We don't have the resources as leaders to do it. Let's put it in the hands of someone who's really good at it and does it well. And it still will be a fraction of the cost of having someone in-house do it for the most part.
So true. All right. So we talked design. Let's get into video. Why does having high quality digital video, why is that important to my worship experience? Why is that important to my church's website, my social media channels, my church in general? Why is high quality video important?
Sure. I hate to answer a question with the question. I know that's a bad thing, but who's been to a good Christian movie and walked out of there like, oh man, the graphics were great, the acting was great, the video quality was great? I've never heard of a single person say that. And so I think that's the reason, is because if it's not good quality, people check out. If it doesn't look like you put time into it, people aren't going to feel like you put time into them. So the quality of what you're outputting is crucial, because people want to know that they matter and that you spent the time to prepare something for them.
And I think that high quality helps you tell a story better, to keep people engaged, to lock into the gospel.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I agree with that. I would say with the Christian movies, I mean, these guys are trying to get better. The Irwins, I've known the Kendricks for a long time.
Sure.
They're definitely trying to up the production quality, the acting. So they're hiring, but they've even gone to, they're hiring the Dennis Quaid's and the Sean Astons, and there's a reason why they're doing that. The reason why is because of the quality. They want the quality of the acting, quality of the production, all that to be engaging.
Yeah, they're learning exactly what we're talking about. They're learning that people aren't paying attention unless you're putting time into it. And so I think it's great for our culture, and especially within a Christian creativity, is for them to realize that people matter. They want to see what you're doing, and you putting the time and energy into it makes a big difference. And people are noticing it. People are paying attention. And I think that's why churches need to do the same thing.
I agree. So let's kind of walk through these individually. Let's kind of dive in deep. So why do your visuals matter in your worship experience? Let's talk about just the Sunday service. Why does it matter there?
Sure. Within our worship experience, we want everyone to focus on Jesus. We don't want them to focus on imperfections. We don't want them to focus on distractions. We don't want them to focus on anything but Jesus, but our message. And so when we don't have high quality video, when we don't have high quality graphics, when someone sees something on the screen that grabs their attention and it's not Jesus, that's a problem. And so anything that we can do to minimize distractions that's where it's at. So that's why we want the quality in everything that we're doing on a Sunday morning, to make sure that it just reflects excellence and reflects everything that Jesus is about.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
And let's just say that a graphic is not distracting. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just, should we? Why should we try to improve that quality? It's not distracting, but it's not where it could be.
Sure. Well, I would argue that there's a lot of people that, while it may not be distracting to a majority, there's going to be a couple of people out there that something's going to stick out to them. So if it isn't the highest quality that you can output, it can be better. We have a culture playbook here. One of the things that we strive for is excellence. We want what we're doing to be the best that it can be. And that's, again, not the best of anyone, but the best that Simple Church can put out. Because it might not distract everyone, but there will be someone out there that is completely bothered by Papyrus being up on the screen. and they
Amen.
won't look any further. So we
Preach.
want people to come back to church. We want them to learn about Jesus, and that sometimes that's what it takes, is going above and beyond and making sure that we've prepared the room for them.
Good. All right. Why do your visuals matter on your church website?
Yeah, I mean, statistics are saying that people are going back to websites. There was a lull there for a while. People were using a lot of other ways to find you, but I've seen it in so many different churches that people's websites are getting checked and checked more often, and so that they need to look good. One of the most frustrating things you can do is go to websites that just you can't navigate well. They just look terrible. They're people that are on the screen clearly are not the people that I'm going to go to the church and interact with. And I want to know that what I'm walking into. I want to know that the place is inviting and the website is the first door that I'm walking through before I even get to the building. It's got to look good. People need to, make it look attractive, make it look like people want to come to your church from it.
What about social media? Can I get away with more or less or quality on social media?
To a point. I mean, I always believe that excellence is the thing, and I don't think you ever want to walk away from that. I do think how you use social media is very different. Make sure we're using it as a tool to promote the gospel and not just to promote ourselves. I mean, there's so many nuances in there, but ultimately it goes back to it's still got to look good. It's still got to communicate the message in as few words as possible, get the attention, and you don't want someone to scroll past your stuff to go to the next guy. So if it's just text on the screen, most chances are you're going to lose that viewer. They're going to keep on scrolling. They're going to get stuck onto a cat video, and they're never coming back to what you did.
Yeah, good. All right. One thing that I love that you guys do at Simple Church is your video announcements. You really have a lot of fun with them.
Sure.
Tell me why you do them and why you pour energy there.
Yeah. So we do it every week. We film those in advance in front of a green screen. We can put a nice background behind we use our pastoral team as well as a couple of people who have joined that team. And ultimately we want someone to see a face, a smile, someone they recognize up on that screen. And we do it in a fun way. We have the ability to tell jokes and kind of have fun with it and be ourselves. And because we want people to connect with those announcements. We found that when our lead pastor just stood there and did the announcements, we had tons of people they just kind of wrote it off. As soon as he got into his message, they forgot everything he said about the announcements because it was just the same face, the same person, the same environment. Creating video announcements now gives us the freedom to have more fun with it, like you said, but we can put in silly sounds and things that gets people's attention. People have no attention span anymore. And so, we make sure to add the dings and the beeps and kind of that, I call it the YouTube stereotype, but it does really work. People are onto something that it gets attention, and we want everyone in the audience, in the congregation, to pay attention and telling jokes, telling stories, having them see us is the way to do it, we think.
So video announcements have kind of had a roller coaster life over the last few years.
Sure.
Some churches, I was at a church that we got away with them, or we did away with them rather, because it was just taking way too much time and energy. And in our culture, nobody really watched them.
Sure.
But in other churches, you guys, I think it works.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on your culture, probably. Why do you find that you guys are a culture that it's worth it to spend the time doing them?
One of my favorite things about Simple Church is just of how tight we are as a family. I mean, even the new people come in, they see it and they jump into it. And I think this is just another opportunity for them to sit with family and so to be a part of that. And so, so we run at it head first. We realize that it doesn't take as much time as you may think. You can build processes and systems into where it gets filmed and edited very quickly, and it is worth it. I want someone to have fun from the get-go, right off the rip, and know that, hey, I came to Simple Church and that first video made me laugh. Something about it was really interesting. I need to pay attention to what's happening next because something is different. And so anything we can do to grab that attention right off the rip, to me, is vital.
All right. Talk to me about the importance of branding your series together.
Sure.
Like you guys had a Pray First series. Your bumper video matches your sermon slides, matches your other video elements. Kind of walk me through the basics there. Why does all that matter?
I mean, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is the design matters ultimately. If I walk out of the house with plaid pants and a camo shirt and stripes, my wife's going to tell me.
What's wrong with it?
Someone's going to notice that something is wrong, that something is up. And just it's just off. And I think that's important in our design as well, that people see the cohesion between everything you're doing. It creates that instant recognition. When they're sliding through our social media the week after Sunday, they see the graphic or the logo for that message series and they go, oh, this is what we just talked about. They can make that connection. So I really want to pay attention because I really like that sermon. If the graphics we're putting together don't match the videos we're putting together, it's just going to feel disjointed. It's just going to feel like not connected. And again, we want people to feel connected to the message. And I believe that's a really easy step, is just to make things look visually the same.
Good. All right. Share some practical tips or some strategies for churches with limited resources. If you're limited in starting to use visual media effectively, give me some strategies and some thoughts on how a church with limited resources can be effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all been there. We've all been to a place where we couldn't afford anybody to actually do this full time. But I think one of the big strategies that we've learned is to raise up young people, disciple people who are interested. My 15-year-old daughter spends more time looking at her own photographs and deciding what's a good photo, what's a bad photo, what's a good angle, what's a bad angle, more than anybody else. Put a camera in the hands of your students. Sit them down in front of a computer and give them Photoshop, or again, there's free programs out there as well. That say, hey, this is what you can do to create better visuals, and then coach them along, raise up the next generation. I mean, the Bible has so many instances where they were raising up the Elijahs, and I think that to me is step one. Step two is you may not have the resources to pay someone, but for what you get out of companies that can design it for you, it is really not as expensive as you think. Usually the sticker shock is what gets most people. If you break that down monthly, yearly, it's really nothing. And I think the impact that you're going to make with having good visual design, good graphics, is well worth it. And I don't know too many churches that would argue and say that they couldn't ultimately, afford what is available out there.
You're very right. So as far as money goes, to get ready-made media is, you're going to spend less than $1,000. Probably well less than $1,000 a year to get all the ready-made visuals that you need.
Right.
Now, with custom media, you might spend a third of what it would cost to do one staff member.
Sure.
And you're probably getting, like with us, you're getting designers and motion designers and a whole team involved for the fraction, say a third of the cost of a full-time staff member. So there are people out there, us and others, that are trying to make that as affordable as we can for churches.
And I think there's
so you're right.
Everyone that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
I think every leader that I've ever sat down with, one of their first things is, well, we can't afford, graphics. We can't afford somebody. And then I always ask them, what is your main goal with your communications team, with your visuals team? Like, well, we want to reach people. And I'm like, okay, so if that's your goal, what is that worth? Like, what's the investment worth to you? And it's always like, oh, okay, well, if this is really what we want to do, it's going to require something. It's going to require either training somebody, hiring somebody, or paying someone to do it for you. And again, the message is so important. If we're spending money on 1,000 other things, on coffee and donuts and all the things around the building, the message is number one. If you miss that, you miss it all. So that's where your dollars need to go, is into how you're telling the story of Jesus. And that is with visuals, that is with video, that is with doing stuff well. Everything else is just kind of the icing on the cake.
Great. Okay, talk to me about a church's visual style. Do you kind of create, hey, this is kind of the framework that we're going to be in, and this falls outside of that box or outside of that fence? How do you know what your church's visual style is?
So I usually suggest that anyone creates a branding guide. Create a document that you can share with anyone who's working for you or with other companies and say, hey, this is who we are. This requires you to take time with your staff, with your team, and sit down and say, first of all, who are we? who are we as an organization? What's our demographic? What is our look? What is our style? How are we trying to communicate? And this is both visuals and it also goes for language. How are we talking? How are we communicating? And then once you do that, write it down, share it with someone. You can have your fonts, you can have your colors, you can have your logos, your do's and don'ts. But once you have that guide, and again, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just, a list of details. Once you have that, just stick to it. And that's across all platforms, your videos, your social medias, everything. Create a brand guide. That is key. That is number one.
How strict do I need to be on that brand guide? How much policing do I need to do around the office?
To me, I'm pretty strict about it. I think it's vitally important that everything we create is cohesive. I think that everything that we create should look the same. I want someone to be scrolling through and go, wait, that looked like Simple Church. Oh, it is Simple Church. I'm sure we fail. I'm sure we drop the ball from time to time, but it is something that's in the back of my mind. A lot of people on my team make jokes from time to time, and it's like, oh, well, that's not to the brand. My wife specifically, who's our executive pastor, says it quite often to me as a joke, but she also knows that I take it seriously. So anytime they're putting up something even in the kids space, they'll kind of look over like, is this in the brand? Like, yeah, you did a good job. You followed the line.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, that's good that they are looking to you as it might be a joke that you're the policeman around the office, but it's good that they're looking to you for it.
Again, it all goes back to why we're doing what we're doing. We want people to have a great experience here because we want them to experience Jesus, and that those details make that happen. I think it helps for sure.
How do you see the future of visual media in churches evolving? Are there trends or innovations, maybe AI? Do you think will be have a significant impact on the church moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's been vital, and it'll just continue to get more important. As much as we hate to say it, I think a lot of churches kind of are very anti, modernization. I think there is something to be said about where the world is going. We don't have to be, of the world, but we are in this world. We have to be able to keep up and show people that we are at least at that close to the leading edge of visuals, of technology, because people pay attention. They really, really do. And I think as far as what that will look like in 5 to 10 years, man, I mean, I'm sure we'll be going back to, 50s and 60s text here shortly, but no, ultimately it's going to get cooler and cooler. I'm excited to see it. I do think that AI is going to play a big role here shortly. I know a lot of churches are using it for like copywriting and such already, which I don't know about you, but I've already seen a lot of social medias and stuff that their text is getting bigger and louder and more clearly written. And I think a lot of that is AI, but graphics, the same thing, man. I think it's going to become not only more affordable to hire companies to do graphics for you, but I think they're just going to look better and better.
I agree. And I don't think that AI is not going to replace graphic designers or video editors. I think you're always going to need somebody to craft, to tweak, to make it better. I think my questions right now are more on the legal side of AI. Should churches be using Midjourney, Adobe Firefly, others right now? Is that an original work, or is that trained? Do you have any take on that, on using AI imagery for visuals?
So I'm a little biased. I was a graphic designer before anything else, and so I'm always like, nah. Obviously, I don't want anyone replacing my job in anywhere, and I don't think that AI can do what a computer or what we can do as designers to, again, hit the you factor. What your vision is, what your church's story is, AI can't capture that. It can capture a picture of what you tell it to do, but it doesn't have personality. It doesn't have your vision. It doesn't have your church's culture in it. It just doesn't hit that. And AI, I don't think we'll ever get to a place where that's possible. We need human designers. We need human videographers and producers to really do this well, to do our church justice when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to the message. We need humans. That's what we're here for. God gave us the ability to create, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Yeah, especially when it comes to theology ministry.
Absolutely.
I think that we have a soul, and so to communicate the gospel in order to connect with other souls is important. I mean, we can pull, we can get close, we can get some help, but there's a relational connection there and a spiritual connection there that a robot is not going to replace.
Yeah, and there's something scary, I think, that as culture, unbelievers and people who aren't church start to help feed AI kind of what it's learning. I do think there'll become a disconnect between unbelievers and where they're going to start trying to push things into AI a little bit more. I know that's probably getting a little deeper than we need to get to, but that is a scary idea that when you could be creating images and there's things hidden in there that you just don't know. Yeah, that there's just bad theology or no theology or something that's just you really don't want to be highlighting, and you may miss it unless you're creating it yourself.
And you may miss it. Very true. Very true. Yep. If you're not really going through it with a fine tooth comb, you can miss it. All right. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. I'm a pastor. I think that maybe if I spend money on my graphics and video content, it's going to make my church too flashy, too concert driven, too, it's not really needed. It's, I can make my own PowerPoints and be fine. Kind of argue against that. How do you balance using media content? You mentioned being distracted earlier. If I'm a pastor, I think my PowerPoint is fine. I make it every week. What's the problem with it?
I think
how do you politely talk to that?
My argument to that would be simply is that even within the statement, you said "I" a lot, and our churches are not meant to be houses where we keep our ideas and our preferences. And if your preference becomes your platform, that's a problem. Ultimately, I can't imagine that everyone in your organization, in your church, has all the same preferences as you. And so I think, I love Life Church. He gets up there and says basically anything short of sin we're going to do in order to push the kingdom forward. And I don't know if you have to take it to that extreme every week, but there's something powerful in that listen, we can create incredible visuals, incredible videos that are just going to tell a story better than our PowerPoints, better than our text on a screen, better than just someone standing there talking about it. There's so much you can do with cinematography and all that, and it's just going to hit it better. There was a day and a time where a church had to have a steeple. It had to have a big cross on the wall, because if it wasn't, well, then you weren't telling the story. You weren't hitting the message. And we're just not there anymore. And I think as culture evolves, people are looking for more, and your visuals are gonna tell that. So I think the pastor that is stuck in his preferences is kind of doing a disservice to his congregation, who might not share the same preferences, and he may be missing opportunities to share the gospel with somebody because they're just bored. They're not interested in what he's currently has.
Okay, so let's circle back around and kind of land the plane with this. I know we've talked all around this, so I'm just going to ask you directly as we close. Why should my church use visual media? Why do your visuals matter at your church?
Your visuals matter because people matter. Your visuals matter because I believe the church's sole job is to spread the message of Jesus and to make disciples. And the first communication in the world was cave drawings. I mean, let's get back to, you can absorb story and message and details so much faster through visuals than through any spoken word, in my opinion. And that is why visuals matter. It's because I want to tell the story of Jesus, and my visuals are going to help me do that in a way that nothing that comes out of my mouth can ever do. Because people are going to see that and they're immediately going to recognize it and they're going to connect with it. And I want people to connect to Jesus. So I'm going to keep on creating visuals.
Keep on, man. Man, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate what you're doing for the kingdom. And man, keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, ministry leader Steve Dirks here on the Church Visuals team. I just wanted to drop a line here and let you know that you are doing a great job in your church and in your ministry. It's a joy to be partnered with you as you communicate the message of the gospel, the hope of the world, to the people in your context. I just want to encourage you that from a passage, just real quick, in this season and whatever season you may be in, hopefully this will be encouraging to you as it was to me recently. But Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not become tired of doing good, for if we do not give up, the time will come when we will reap a harvest." And I think two things really just encourage me here. One, the fact that we will get tired in ministry, and we can get tired in ministry, and the call is to continue to press in and continue to press into the strength of Jesus, being faithful to our call, to our mission, because the harvest is real, and God is asking us to continue to press into what He's called us to do. And then two, the time will come when we will reap a harvest, and we don't know when that harvest will be. We don't know what that looks like. He hasn't given us that roadmap, but He calls us to continue to press in, to not give up, because the harvest is coming. And so I'm praying for you in your church, where you find yourself as you're watching this. We're here for you. If myself or anyone on our team could serve you, whether it's being an ear to listen to and talk about your context and how we could serve you, or if it's just having someone come alongside and carry weight with you, we would love to be a partner with you in your ministry. We're praying for you. We're praying as you continue to communicate the message of the gospel visually, that God would empower you as you communicate that gospel to be effective, and that God would continue to bless your ministry.
Hey friends, as we wrap this week's episode, let's end with a clear, concise takeaway. Here's your church visuals tip of the week. Good design and video matters to the people that you are trying to reach. Invest in quality digital media. Move past your admin or your pastor creating his own PowerPoint slides. I get it. It's what you have on staff. It's what you have available to you. But I'd love to encourage you to take that next step, to go to the next level. Move into using ready-made media, or using a company like Church Visuals to custom produce your graphics and videos. So your first step might be coming off of the admin or your pastor or you doing your own PowerPoint and using ready-made media that looks better, that's done by a professional designer or a professional video producer. Maybe that is your next step. At Church Visuals, we exist not only to just help you take your visual media to the next level, but we want your visuals to help you communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can have the best designs, the best videos on the planet, but if you're not seeing salvation and discipleship happen in your church, they're worthless. Your visuals matter because life change matters, because winning people to Jesus matters, because your people growing in their faith matters. If you want to reach the people you want to reach for Jesus, your visuals matter. Be sure to like this episode of the show. And if you would, leave a comment. We respond to all comments. We respond to all emails. We would love to hear from you. And subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. And you can follow us on social media at Church Visuals. I'll see you next week. Your Visuals Matter has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals. Executive produced by Carl Barnhill. Edited by AJ Schubert. Title and show graphics by Angie Lomas. For more resources to help you visually communicate the gospel, visit churchvisuals.com.